So thanks to David and the board for the chance to be here tonight and introduce Colonel Bob Mabry. Thanks to Dr. Smith for that incredible talk. I'd also like to recognize Bob's family. His wife Terry is here. She's a mental health professional who works at Fort Bragg with our active duty service members suffering from PTSD. His son Jake is a captain in the Special Forces, and while we're having dinner, he's over there dropping bombs on ISIS somewhere in the Middle East. I see a lot of Army here. Do we have any Marines in the house? Well, the Mabrys have a Marine. Son Nick is going through the basic school right now. What a great family. So let me tell you the Bob Mabry story in 3 minutes or less. It's not easy. He started out as a Special Forces 18 Delta medic, rose rapidly to the rank of E7 in an elite Tier 1 Special Operations unit. On 3 October 1993, in a combat scenario familiar to everyone who's seen the movie Black Hawk Down, Sergeant Mabry came with a combat rescue crew to the site of a helicopter crash in the middle of Mogadishu city. Sergeant Mabry and his team fast-roped out of the helicopter down into the middle of this conflict where he started to treat casualties while surrounded by hundreds of unhappy and heavily armed Somalis. So in the middle of a gunfight, you have to keep your presence of mind. Bob went into the downed helicopter, took out the armor plates, put them around his position, and undoubtedly saved lives by that quick thinking. Was awarded the Silver Star for this courage and initiative in combat. Went on to medical school at USHUS, of course. Was president of his class in medical school, of course. Was in AOA, the Medical Honorary Society, of course. And went on to become an emergency medicine physician. Went to Afghanistan. I think that was the first time. And spent a year with the Special Forces Battalion. As his career has progressed, he's emerged as one of the leading innovators in military medicine. There's nobody else in the military like Bob Mabry. How many people here have ever taught medical students or physicians never to put on a tourniquet? Come on. That's what we thought when we went to war in Afghanistan. And Captain Mabry was one of the people who not only developed the tourniquet that we now use, but helped to train physicians and medics to use it at a time when most physicians thought that was absolutely the wrong thing to do. That simple device has now saved about 2,000 or 3,000 American lives. So the list goes on. You know, Colonel Mabry is the premier authority on the injured airway in combat in the U.S. military. His research that documented improved survival during evacuation when helicopters were staffed with paramedics rather than EMT basics. What a concept. But nobody did anything about that until Bob Mabry wrote his paper, and then, no small task, convinced the Army that he was right, and they'd been wrong all these years, and so now the Army has a critical care flight paramedic program, a huge step in casualty evacuation. He was the academic director at the AMED Department of Combat Medic Training. It's the biggest combat medic training center in the world. Bob personally supervised the training of about 16,000 combat medics. When the DoD realized that they needed an EMS fellowship, Emergency Medical Services Fellowship in the military, Bob was the person they chose to be the founding director. He's a scholar, he's a visionary. How many people here have actually worked in military medicine? How many people have ever been incredibly frustrated at how you can't get things done that need to happen, even in things like combat casualty care? So it's not the people. Everybody has great intentions, but great intentions do not equal great results. If you haven't read his 2014 paper, Challenges to Improving Survival in Combat Casualty Care, it is a must-read. He now serves as a command surgeon for the Joint Special Operations Command, where he's responsible for the well-being of our nation's most elite warriors and coordinates the medical planning for the highest priority missions that the U.S. military carries out. This is one of the most sought-after jobs in military medicine, and they picked the right guy for that job. Colonel Mabry's personal and professional courage, his commitment to excellence, and his leadership skills are unsurpassed. There may never be another Letterman Award honoree who has more significant accomplishments in all aspects of pre-hospital combat casualty care, from decorated combat medic to emergency medicine physician to medical researcher to now a combat medical leader. You know, I feel pretty sure that if Jonathan Letterman were here tonight, he would be very proud to have Bob Mabry winning the award that bears his name. Bob.
Tell joke. Thanks for that, Frank. And so, Frank, I appreciate your friendship and mentorship all these years. Frank has an extraordinary ability to tell nice things about me, and which I really, really appreciate. So it's an honor to be considered for the award, and I'm thankful to the museum for having us here and putting on the dinner and putting on the award. Really, really honored to be just even considered in the same sentence or the same paragraph with Jonathan Letterman, Frank Butler, John Holcomb, other previous recipients of the award. So thank you very much for all that. I'm a graduate of the Uniformed Services University, America's Medical School, and I've had the privilege of hearing Dr. Smith speak on many occasions when I was a student, both him and Dr. Joy. And so a lot of my work is grounded in history, and so I think the historical perspective, and I think what we do at the Uniformed Services University and teaching medical students history, you got to have that context. And so much of my work has been built on the historical aspects of things, and what I've learned is often the recurring themes in military medicine are the recurring themes in military medicine. And so you can bring to bear all the quotes about history. You know, if you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat it, so on and so forth. So I got when the museum notified me of the award, they sent me a couple of books. One of them was Surgeon in Blue. So let me, for those of you that have been in the Army in 2001, throughout the longest war in America's history, let me read some quotes from the medical service during the bloodiest war in American history. So Letterman found and this is, mostly direct quotes, some paraphrasing, a medical service focused on garrison care and not prepared for war. A medical service that did not learn the lessons from the history or previous campaigns. A medical department that had changed little in the past 50 years and that changed very little even after the first year of war. Low esteem by medical officers by line officers. They found weapons that produced massive injuries, the likes of which had never been seen by doctors in the field. He encountered a paucity of trained surgeons, medical officers that went to war unprepared for the new weapons and resultant injuries they would face. A lack of ownership and accountability of medical leaders for the care of casualties. Bureaucratic infighting that resulted in split command and control of battlefield medical resources. Initially, battlefield care was extremely fragmented with no coherent system. This was only changed based on the forceful lobbying of extraordinarily dedicated medical leaders well into the war and after many lives had been lost. Military medicine, as heretofore been conceptualized, had to be abandoned, and an entirely new approach had to be developed on the march at the highest levels of military, the government, and within the civilian community. Congressional action was needed to overhaul the medical department. Letterman recognized a critical link previously missing for most of military medical history, the care in between the firing line and the forward hospital. He developed and implemented policies to ensure medical records and data were collected to improve military surgery. However, within a year or so after the war, many of the hard-fought lessons learned were forgotten, as the number of patients had drastically fallen, along with it the ranks of the most experienced combat surgeons. Once the war was over, the medical department again recasted itself back to its pre-war state, focused on garrison medicine. So, Dr. Smith, we have some work to do still. Like Mark Twain said, history may not repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. So anyway, I'm very grateful for the award, but there's still work to do. And so our challenge is how do we learn from people like Jonathan Letterman, and how do we finally learn history? I think George Bernard Shaw was the one that said, what we learn from history is we don't learn from history. So how do we break that cycle going forward is going to be a challenge for military medicine. So thank you very much again for your time.